Brian and I recorded this episode earlier this year. At the time, Ethiopia was at peace. Since then, war has broken out in the Tigray region of the country, and many people have been victims of genocide. At the time of recording this intro, rebel forces have closed in on Ethiopia's capital of Addis Ababa. We cannot recommend traveling to this country at this time and hope that things get better. If you wish to make a donation to help humanitarian efforts in the country, we will link a donation page to Save the Children, an organization aiming to help those affected by the issues going on in Ethiopia.
We're the travel agents coming to you with tips, tricks, interviews, and voyages by cruise. The travel agents bringing you the latest travel news.
Hey, I'm your host, Brian.
And I'm Will.
Coming at you with the Travel Agents Podcast. Will, I am so excited for today's episode.
I'm really excited too, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so funny because we have done Cleveland. We've done episodes on Philadelphia. We just did an episode on Pigeon Forge and Sedona. We're jumping over here to Ethiopia.
Yeah, it's kind of a turn for the best, for sure.
We're doing our first international episode. Let's just jump in head first, all the way over. Let's just head over to Eastern Africa and let's hit our listeners with something so unique.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most interesting and fascinating destinations I've ever been to in my entire life.
To say I'm jealous is not doing it justice. I want to go to Africa so badly. I've never had an opportunity to go.
This was such a cool experience for me. So prior to Ethiopia, I had done Morocco and then South Africa. So it's funny because Morocco's up north. Yeah. South Africa is the furthest south country in Africa. Ethiopia, let's give our listeners just a little geography. We are here in Eastern Africa in the Horn.
The Horn of Africa.
Surrounded by countries like Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya.
And South
Sudan. And Sudan as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So really just an interesting place. I want to tell you kind of what transpired that I went to Ethiopia, because truth is it was the summer of 2019 and I was invited to visit friends in South Africa. And the reason I went to Ethiopia is because I had a whole bunch of accrued points on my Chase Sapphire Reserve Visa card. Now, for you credit card gurus out there, you know that the Chase cards transfer over to United Airlines. United's a part of Star Alliance. In the Star Alliance network is Ethiopian Airlines. So when you're looking at, okay, how many points do I need on United to get over to South Africa? It had the best flights going through Addis Ababa on Ethiopian Airlines. I got to fly, I'm pretty proud to say this, I got to fly business class on Ethiopian Airlines all the way to South Africa. It was a treat. I'm eager to tell you all about my experience on Ethiopian Airlines because, wow, that is a classy airline, ladies and gentlemen.
Man, I'm like really jealous as you talk.
Thank you. Good. That's always my hope with you. I just want to make, if I can make friends jealous, I'm happy. But on the way to South Africa, I just had a quick layover in Ethiopia. I think it was 2 hours. It was just enough to kind of stretch my legs, use the toilet, walk around the airport, be a little bit amazed at just like people watching and looking where these other flights are headed to destinations I've never heard of. And then after my time in South Africa, and we will do a South Africa episode, don't you worry. I'm eager to talk about that. But on my way home, I had these two options. And if you're like just kind of an adventurous traveler, I'm sure you've been in my shoes here, where I had the option of flying home with like a 2-hour layover in Ethiopia or a 2-day layover. And so I chose the 2-day layover, which was really just one night in a hotel. But I saw and did so much, and it was just so interesting, all that I saw, and so different than anything I've seen before, that I was like, Will, we need to do a podcast. So essentially, Will, we are doing a podcast on my layover. But I'm okay with that.
The two-day layover?
Yeah. So I think one quick thing I'll just say, here's basically what it transpired. Day number one that this is me coming home back to America, stopping in Ethiopia for 2 days. That first day, I hit up the city capital where all the flights go into, which is Addis Ababa. Airport code ADD. That's Alpha Delta Delta for our airport code nerds. I'm looking at myself. I need a mirror. So I would say that one quick interesting aspect is, as a U.S. traveler, you do need a tourist visa to get into Ethiopia. It was not hard to get. I believe it was $50 in 2019. I'll fact check that. But I remember I applied on a Monday, and then by that Friday, they sent me my approval, and it was pretty easy. I just printed it out and brought it along. Something kind of funny happened though. And I think it had to do, actually to this day, I don't actually have the facts, but I think it had to do with the fact that I flew through Ethiopia and then came back, and that's when I actually stayed, right?
Okay.
So when I was going into the country, I was passing through customs, and the very kind Ethiopian girl who was working at immigration, she's like, yeah, so Brian, we show here that you were already here for 11 days. Your visa's expired. I was like, oh, I trust me. I was here for 2 hours in the airport. She's like, your system shows that you've been here for 11 days. And
wow.
No, I wasn't. I promise. I just stayed upstairs in the gate area. And so we're just going back and forth. And it was a Sunday, and their manager had left for the day. So it's these three, what looked to me like teenage kids who were really eagerly trying to help me, but you got to come in this back room and just hang out for a second. And meanwhile, my tour guide who's picking me up, he's messaging me on WhatsApp, dude, where are you? I'm out here in the parking lot. I see your flight came in. Did I miss you? Because I'm a 6'3" white guy. I'm pretty easy.
You stick
to
out
notice.
like a sore thumb.
Yeah, exactly. In Ethiopia, at least. But it was just so funny. I finally said, you could tell these airport reps wanted to help me so bad, but they just could not let me through. They didn't know what to do. And I finally said, can I just give you $50 right now and you let me through? And the guy was like, yes. And I was like, perfect. He's like, all right, let me get you a receipt. I'm like, don't even worry about it. Just get me through. I'm only here for 2 days. I just went in, right? So
wow.
I know. I feel like I was definitely one out of 1,000 people there who was pulled aside.
Was that the first time you had to bribe someone?
Yeah, that would be actually, hold on. I did live in China for that year, so I have to think I was probably 3 or 4 bribes deep.
Sure,
yeah. Oh, we should do an episode on bribing.
That's an episode in itself.
That's an episode in itself. We could get some interesting guests for that. But anyways, I just had a blast. Day number 1 was in the city. I'm excited to tell you all about Addis Ababa because I love cities. Then day number 2, we went out to the country. So I will tell you that they speak a language called Amharic in Ethiopia. I learned one word. It was Ani Sekananyu, which means thank you. And it took me about 3 or 4 days of practice prior to get down. So I really wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
A lot quicker than it would take me.
Thanks, man. But I think the best part of today's episode, and if you came because you saw it said Ethiopia, that makes me thrilled. But you're going to stay because I have my Ethiopian friend here in the studio. His name is Iskinder. Iskinder, welcome to the Travel Agents Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Hey,
so,
our
Iskinder,
pleasure.
yeah, where are you from?
Ethiopia, right from the heart of it, from Addis Ababa.
Wow.
See, here's pronunciation.
It's beautiful. I love it.
Iskinder it's funny because his English is too good. You forget that he's even more fluent in Amharic.
I hope so.
So can you just tell our listeners, why are you here in Akron, Ohio currently?
I came here about 5.5 years back for a PhD education, right?
And I would love to be the first to say congratulations on the podcast because you defended your thesis.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
It's a couple months ago.
A couple
right?
monse ago. Yes.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's amazing.
And I was going to ask you what was your thesis in, but it kind of goes with this next question. What plans and dreams do you have for Ethiopia, going back to Ethiopia?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think I would probably be shooting for my work to be international, international so much so that, scholars and students in Ethiopia can benefit from my work at some point. But in terms of having a concrete plan to relocate to Ethiopia or to go back to Ethiopia and do what it is that I enjoy doing, what I've been doing here the past almost 6 years, I really don't have that right now.
Right.
But I hope in some form or shape, I will be involved in what goes on in Ethiopia. So that's for sure.
What's your PhD in?
It was in polymer science.
Wow. Polymer science.
Akron, Ohio, the capital of polymer science.
Hey, that's what we're known for, man. Congratulations. That's
thank
impressive.
you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So it's cool. I remember I was just telling you before we started this, when I got to visit Ethiopia, when I came back home here to Akron, Ohio, Iskinder and I went out for dinner, and I was so excited to show him pictures and tell him about what I saw, because he actually understood like what I saw. Like trying to tell friends and family about your time in Ethiopia, they're kind of like, okay, I don't really get it. Like just too foreign. But Iskinder was able to kind of relish in my joy with me. So let's start with seasons to visit. Iskinder, what's the weather like? When's a good time to visit? Where are we in the world? Where's Ethiopia even in the world in relation to the equator? Can you kind of fill us in there?
Right, that's a bunch of questions, but but in general, to take your first question. When's a good time to visit? I mean, Ethiopians pride themselves in being in a country that has 13 months of sunshine, right? Because they have 13 months. We have a 5 or 6 day month at the end of the year, and all year round, it's really warm. It's you get rain pretty much every season, depending on where you are, actually. But in general, the weather is pretty permitting to visit any time of the year. So
just like Ohio.
It's like 20. It's like, no, it was 14 degrees out today.
In Fahrenheit.
Yep. Yeah, Iskinder, you said your folks back home are saying that right now it's pretty pleasant.
Yep. They're saying that right now. I think they were here a couple months ago for my graduation, which didn't happen due to COVID. And they're back now, and they're telling me it's pretty hot lately. So you just don't know what you get. It's winter here, and it's a completely different story back there.
I was there in August, and it's funny. I'm re-looking at some of my pictures. I see that I'm wearing like jeans and a t-shirt, the majority, and a lot of locals in my pictures were wearing something similar. So it wasn't like blazing hot. We're like, oh no, I have to wear shorts. I remember even in the evening having like a light jacket. So I love that kind of weather.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, me too. Probably the only difference for me is, it's due to the fact that it's right around the equator, that the sun is really coming out at you very directly, right? So you sort of feel it. It's really, for some reason, I really feel it in my head, when I walk around, at noon or something. But in Ohio, it's really at a slant, so you don't feel it. But I'm surprised you were there in August and you really didn't feel the heat. But maybe it's because it rains a lot as well, so it sort of moderates it somehow.
Raining,
yeah.
That's cool.
Probably part of it, but it gets pretty hot. The sun is really scorching sometimes.
Iskinder, in Ethiopia, they speak a language called Amharic. I really impressed our listeners earlier by saying thank you, which is, actually, you should say it first. Hold on. Is it Ani Sekananyu?
It's close enough. I'd give you a...
Would you understand?
75%.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, Brian. I'll give you 100% on everything else but this. So it's Ameseganalo. I'm not sure how many syllables that is, but it's a pretty long word, right?
Yeah, you weren't even close.
Right. Ameseganalo. No, he was close, to be fair.
I don't even want to try anymore.
Yeah.
All right.
So Amharic is the official language, but there are, tens of other languages.
Wow.
But it's like everyone sort of understands it. And as I say, Amharic is to Ethiopia what English is to the world these days. Everyone sort of understands, English The same is true for Amharic in Ethiopia.
Do those different languages come from different tribes that make up Ethiopia?
I think so, yes, sort of.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
that's true. It really is very different. Sometimes the languages belong to completely different families, and it's
That's
very
so
weird.
fascinating.
Yeah.
You're all about keeping Amharic pure, not letting your fellow students, buddies, family members try to slip in English slang and things like that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I'm an Amharic purist. I try to, because English, and I mean predominantly English, has a lot of advocates. Everyone can understand it, can help develop that language. But Amharic, if everyone is sort of really mixing and matching with English, it's really hard to sustain that. So at least by my estimation, 20%, 25% of Amharic speakers should really be very strict about using Amharic whenever they can. For conversational Amharic, I think you can pretty much express anything you want with Amharic if you're, careful enough to do it. But if you're more a fan of ease of conversation, then you might be able to use whatever word comes to your mouth.
So you go out to the bar with your buddies in Ethiopia and you spend the whole night like correcting them?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I usually try to lead by example, when I text and when I speak, I try to be as, purely Amharic speaking as I can get.
What a buzzkill.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but yeah, fortunately my family are really putting up with me on that one. So my friends as well. So
Does Amharic use the alphabet, or does it have its own characters?
the latter.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Cool.
Oh, yeah, that is cool. One question before getting into our defining words. It's Africa and we're Americans. What's it called when you just haven't done any research on a destination?
Being unprepared.
No, I mean what I'm getting at is animals. So it's Africa. Are there just leopards running around the street and giraffes and kangaroos? Kangaroos, where am I?
Just name any exotic
How
animal.
is that the next off my tongue? Are there kangaroos?
No,
Okay.
no. I think they're endemic to Australia. So I don't think you find them anywhere else, but I'm not sure. I might be wrong on that one.
Cleveland Zoo.
Oh, really? They have them, right?
Actually, I don't know.
Yeah, me neither. I
haven't
don't
been
know.
to Cleveland Zoo.
Been a
Okay,
while.
to be continued.
Same.
We will fact check that.
Yep.
But animals.
I'm not quite. I mean, if you go,
I saw cows.
yeah, see,
I mean,
see a lot of
it
them.
looked
Yeah.
like Ohio. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I'm not quite sure about. I mean, there are endemic animal species like the walia, and there are some species of wildebeest and that sort of thing. But I'm not quite sure. Check that.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. You have Kenya south of you, so you can do your safari drive down there.
Absolutely. I
Sure.
think they really are superior. In the Kenyans, our
Good.
neighbors to the south. Yep.
There you go. We had some really fun defining words to put together for this podcast, so we'll hit them with it.
Here's 3 words to help you. Here's our defining words.
No jingle guy, we have 4 words.
Yeah, this time we
That's
have 4
okay.
words.
We have 4. I couldn't keep it down to 3. My first word is injera.
And what is that?
I feel like I'm saying it wrong.
Probably are.
It
Is he?
is
He's doing it all right. All right.
bread, but I've never seen bread like this because, pardon me, Iskinder, it looks like a sponge. I would tell my friends it's spongy bread.
Yeah, I mean, there's sponge cake. Is it kind of similar to whatever makes up sponge cake? I don't know what makes up sponge cake, but
It's just like every time you go to a restaurant in Ethiopia, they bring out a sponge cake as your appetizer.
Yep.
No, but really, it's cool because if you've been to an Ethiopian restaurant, you know what I'm talking about. Basically, think of like a base layer on a large plate or a large platter. I want to say Ethiopian food was very communal, right?
Absolutely true. Yep.
And so imagine you put down a layer of thin bread, but it's spongy and it's very terrible. On top of the bread, you have different portions of food. So, for example, you might have meat, like a chicken or beef. You might have cheese. You might have vegetables. A mixture of hot and cold food, all kind of like in little blobs all on top of the injera.
Hmm.
And then you tear off a piece of the injera, and that becomes your scooping mechanism. And you scoop the item from the blob of food, and then you just take it right to your mouth.
I'm just picturing like loaded nachos, but spongy.
Yeah. Well, the thing with loaded nachos is they really mix the food. This is much more beautiful because you
Okay.
have like a feta cheese blob,
Ooh.
then like in 2 inches away from it, a blob of beef tibs.
Right. That could be one
TIBS.
variety. Yes.
Tibs. Okay. What does tibs mean? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Just like beef.
I don't know. Yeah.
Just think of like beef strips.
Yeah,
or
it
something.
means beef, but I don't know the etymology
okay.
of it. Like if it's
Yeah.
Amharic per se. I
Yeah,
think it should
yeah.
be Amharic. I don't know.
It's probably just the
Yeah, but it's beef.
translation.
Yeah, it's safe to say that.
It's what's on the menu, the English menu at least. And then some vegetables and whatnot. Was there? Did they do? I'm trying to remember. Was there a lot of like pickled things, like pickled radishes, and what kind of vegetables were big?
I don't know which ones you had the opportunity to enjoy there, but cabbage is pretty big. Spinach, you get a lot of.
Oh
that.
yeah, I'm looking at a picture that I took.
Yeah.
It was.
I mean,
it was
vegetarian options are
cabbage,
really
tomato.
available. You know,
Wow.
if you're a vegetarian or a vegan. So
There was lettuce and feta cheese. I found that interesting that there was feta.
Can you show the picture to the class?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Do you
Okay.
recognize
Oh, yeah,
some of those
yeah.
foods
yeah, I do. Yep.
that look yummy?
Oh
Looks
yeah, he
delicious.
does. Yeah.
Make you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know what
see.
it's like to be food homesick. So I can only imagine, Iskinder, that you are food homesick. Except you have grown to adopt the KFC snacker as like your.
Right. My injera substitute is the KFC chicken kernel with Nashville hot sauce because I like something hot.
Well, I'm glad
and I
you
have it with
found-
like mayo because But
I'm glad you found something here
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
doesn't remind you of home at all. But
no. It's just
you
the
at
mental
least
work.
enjoy
It's
it.
entirely mental.
Is there anything you want to say about injera?
Yeah, injera is a very fascinating thing. I'm not sure if it's very nutrition wise, because it's a debate I usually have with my mom. It's just a lot of delicious food that you can make with injera. But for me, I'm really into bodybuilding and that sort of thing. Just I'm in that in that spirit most of the time. So it has a lot of iron, but I'm not sure if it has all the other nutrients in a balanced sort of way. But it's not to say I don't enjoy it. It's not to
Right.
say it doesn't make the meal.
So it's
full.
like a comfort food.
Okay.
Probably,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
More so,
okay.
yes.
I can
But
see
it's
that.
really good. I love it. It's just, you cannot really have all those, the wet and all the stew that you eat it with.
Yeah.
So you cannot really enjoy them as much with bread or with any other.
Yeah. But Iskinder, one thing I want to say while we're talking about injera and while we're talking about food, I was there for 6 meals, right? And 5 of those 6 meals, we had a dish that looked like what I just described. Now, I believe there is a variety of Ethiopian food. I believe it.
Right.
I will say
We
my-
had this conversation. I know it's really
my
hard.
tour
a hard,
guides
a hard
took me.
thing
Yeah.
to wrap your
So-
head around. But
Well, what I'm trying to, what I want to tell listeners is, what would you say to an American who says, yeah, I like Ethiopian food once or twice, but like if you're going to go for a whole week or 10 days, are you going to have that same dish I just described every single day?
yeah, just tell them get over it. I'm just kidding. There are a bunch of other varieties. If you want to, probably the reason that you probably had that the whole time is because you were going with Ethiopian friends, right? So
Yeah.
they prefer that to a pasta or any other dish. So it's more like a preference thing. It's not because it isn't available, I think. If you look at the menu, I mean, where did you stay? What hotel did
The
you?
Capitol Hotel.
The Capitol Hotel. So the menu is really full, right? I suppose. Like full
Well,
of,
I got back late at like 10 p.m. We were out going to see shows and
okay.
meeting people, having coffee ceremonies and everything. It was awesome. Wow.
Oh, yeah. So what I was saying was,
We were at restaurants.
yeah. So, but but in general, I think for an American, it shouldn't be a problem if you go to like a pretty decent
hotel,
restaurant. But if you go to the very traditional place, they won't probably ask you to choose from Western dishes. But
Right.
but
Is Ethiopian food, does it tend to be spicy or is it not so much?
I would say so. Brian might be able to compare that because your palate is really made in America. So
Made in America.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
the difference should be very visible to
Yeah.
you. For me,
Well, I'm
it's-
like when I go to an Indian restaurant, I'm level 2 to
Okay,
give you an
okay.
idea of where I am.
So not a
And
fan.
Not a man.
Not a fan, I said. I would never question you. man.
Well, the funny thing is, I like spicy food. I just can't.
I got you.
I feel like that's a weak excuse, but it's my excuse.
Oh man, that's fine.
right.
I enjoy some heat, but
Yeah.
the amount of heat that satisfies me is jalapeno level. Whereas
Did you get that in Ethiopia? To answer Will's question, head on.
well, it's funny because I'm looking at this picture of this injera dish. I have to post this picture or something for our listeners to see.
Yeah, we can probably include it in our travel guide.
That'd be great. I'm remembering. You have to understand. You get this large, like maybe 18-inch. What's it called? The line circumference? With like a circle. It's a circular plate.
Yeah.
With 18 inches across. Is that the circumference or the radius?
Diameter.
We haven't been in
This
school
is
for a while.
well, I'm here with 2 engineers. I shouldn't even. Yeah. Well, I guess this is a good time to ask. All right, so it's like an 18-inch diameter plate for all of us to eat from, and there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 16 different blobs of food, and I'm seeing there are 2 blobs of just spice. So yes, that was an option.
Yeah.
I'm sure I probably had a teeny bit, or I passed. Knowing me.
Got to give it a try at least once.
Oh, absolutely. But this picture came from this night. I'm going to finish with this story. This picture came from this night that my tour guide took me to a place in Addis Ababa, the capital city, that was like dinner and a show. I've told you about this. They come out and do like Ethiopian people come out on stage and they dance for you. They do traditional dances. They're wearing traditional garb.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful traditional background with some like paintings and whatnot. It's a very entertaining show while you're eating your dinner, drinking beer. Have you
It's
been
really
to that
cool.
place?
Absolutely, yes. Those are
You know
the
what I'm
places
talking
I enjoy. Yeah,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Extended family, that's really the place to be.
I just love to give just an idea of cost.
Please
So
do.
I took traveling as a single guy. The thing I do okay traveling, even though I'm an extrovert. I do okay traveling alone. It's when it comes to dinner. Going to a restaurant and eating by yourself is so depressing. I really hate it.
Or
Yeah,
really
I have-
relaxing.
It's just not true. And I'm never prepared. I never have a book. I never have like
Yeah.
a Kindle. It's just like my iPhone. I don't know. I remember I was at a very classy restaurant in Venice, Italy. There's like a candle at each table and
Yeah.
all these couples. And then there's
no.
me all by myself.
But you're in
So-
Venice and you're loving it.
Yeah. Sure. Well, in Ethiopia, I said to my tour guide, he said, okay, well, it's had a lot of fun with you, but like it's, about ready to wrap up. I said, hey, can I treat you to dinner? He said, oh, that's really nice, but like, I got to get back to my wife and kid. And I said, can I treat them to dinner too? He said, no one's ever asked that. Are you serious? I was like, yeah, why not? Like, I'm thinking, ooh, I wonder if this is going to be costly. He was like, yeah, let's go. He's like, but I don't have a car. We hired this driver. I said, can we invite the driver as well? And their eyes lit up. They were excited. I felt really cool, like here I'm just inviting everyone out to dinner. Like I'm just going to cover it, whatever it costs. Like if I have to put on the company card, sorry, Dad. Like, it was a great experience. He's like, all right, we have to go pick up my wife and my 2-year-old son. No, 1-year-old son at our apartment. Driver takes us to my tour guide's apartment. We walk in. He's up on like the 2nd or 3rd floor, and it was just such a cool experience because it's a very local experience I'm having. This isn't a tourist trap or a tourist experience I'm having at this moment. We walk into this apartment, and he had called his wife to kind of prep her that, hey, I'm bringing home one of my clients, right?
Mhm.
We go in, and she has prepared a traditional Ethiopian, like a coffee ceremony,
Wow.
which it's hard to explain it. There was a lot of smoke. There was things you pour. It was kind of like a pour over. There was this really cool, intricate like setup with cute little cups and whatnot. And I mean, the whole thing, I'm not doing it justice, but it smelled delicious. I love Ethiopian coffee. We'll have to talk more about it in a minute, but it was so much fun. The driver came inside and joined us. And then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us went out to the restaurant, and it was dinner and a show I'm paying for. We had multiple beers, each. I don't think the wife drank. And then we had a couple of these like very large whatchamacallits. So they brought out the bill, and I wanted to give a good tip. And the tour guide said, yeah, you're allowed to tip. I said, I want to tip, 20%. He said, that's really nice. Go for it. And I tipped, and with the tip, it came to $46.
Wow.
The whole thing.
Wow, that's pretty good. That sounds about right.
You think
though.
it's
Did
right?
you take
Okay,
him to
cool.
like the equivalent of like McDonald's or something?
No, this was back me up here. Like, where did I take them?
Right. No. 46 $46 is like, maybe by the time
Oh, yeah, that's right.
you were there, it's like 30 birr per dollar conversion, maybe. So it's a pretty decent.
Birr, BIRR. It's about 1,800 Ethiopian birr.
Yeah. So which is pretty high actually, because
You think
you
that
have
was
to
high
think in
for a meal?
Ethiopian terms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But for me, it was like, it was fantastic. It was so cool.
Right. Which is a good
That is
point
really cool.
because, one of the advantages of, going to a country that has that sort of currency advantage is
We
that,
can be ballers.
Right. I mean, if you go from Europe or from America, it really makes sense, Even from Ethiopia
Makes
to
sense.
India, it really makes sense
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
like
Oh,
the
right on.
currency it works to your advantage. So that's one thing that, everyone should capitalize on
Okay.
when you select places to visit.
I'm only one word into our defining words.
You're doing great,
The
man.
thing
You're
is,
doing
I'm
great.
too excited about this.
It's all right.
It'd be hard pressed to believe I was only there for 2 days, and yet I have so much material because it was.
I'm ready to
I'm
hear all
just
your
so
stories,
excited.
man.
Right. That's
I wanna-
amazing, though. You really jam-packed it with experience, which is really
yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're quite the
I did
tourist.
more in 2 days than you did in your lifetime. Okay, my second word was Ethiopian Airlines.
Please tell us why this airline is so fantastic.
So it's no secret, if you want your country to do well, you have to have an airline with plenty of lift. And when I say lift, I mean flights to and from countries, right? So we were just talking about this example of Kenyan Airways. I know they fly from Nairobi to JFK, but that's the only route I know that they do in the US. It's one route, one flight per day. That's it. If you want to get people to your country, you have to be able to offer many flights, good rates, and stay competitive. So Ethiopian Airlines just kind of, I don't know how old this airline is. That would be a really nice if we could find out the year they Ethiopian Airlines opened.
Look it up.
But I do, thank you. I do know that they fly from Addis Ababa all over the world, but let's just talk specifically in the US. They have flights to Chicago, Washington, D.C., and New York. That's 3. And I heard they were trying to open into Miami. I think COVID stopped them. Go ahead.
So the airline opened in 1945.
Oh, it was forever ago.
Yeah, that's, man,
So did
got
they
some
just...
years of experience.
Yeah. But this whole thing with like these new... So what they're flying to the U.S. are the new Boeing 787 Dreamliners. These are the super cool planes that kind of just came out like 5 or 6 years ago. They're designed in such a way that like the way they recycle the air and the freshness of it, you don't feel like you've just been in the plane for 12 hours. You feel
Wow.
like you've been in it for much less. Even like the windows, you know how like on a 787 Dreamliner, when like you open up the window blinds, this isn't an open close. It's touch, like it's a button, and then it fades to black.
Ooh,
The window,
fancy.
yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, it's very fancy. So, and always they welcome you with blue lights when you walk into a 787. So every flight I was on was the I'm sure they have other aircrafts too, but every Ethiopian airline flight I was on the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. I did get to fly business class. I forget how many points it was, but it was extremely reasonable. It was under 100,000 round trip.
What's that translate to in dollars? About $1,000, right? No,
No,
about 2,000, isn't it?
I would say it's tough because I don't know like how rewards points specifically for
That's
a
true. You get
partner
more
airline. Yeah, and it wasn't like Ethiopian points. It was United points. That was a code share booking onto Ethiopian. So what I'm getting at, great question. I'd guess maybe it was somewhere around 2,700 if I had to guess.
And that was for business.
That was for business round trip. So what was really neat about this was you got your lie flat seats. You got a wide variety of movies on the plane.
What is a lie flat seat? Is that
A lie
basically
flat
you
seat
can recline
is-
and sleep?
It's your seat turns into 180 degrees, lie flat bed. They gave you 3 pillows, one for your left and right sides and one for your head. They gave you a comforter. One thing that was kind of fun. They had these green and red stickers you could or like magnets you could put up. If you didn't want to be disturbed by the flight attendant, you just put up the red magnet. I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, that way they wouldn't disturb you. But they came around with multiple beverage services, multiple food options. The food was delicious. And I was a huge fan of Ethiopian Airlines. Highly recommend it. This is like, don't be scared of it. Don't think, oh no, I've not heard of this airline. No, fly them with confidence. It was a better experience than any U.S. carrier I've been on.
Go for the airline, stay for the food.
Third word, Ethiopia was extremely safe and friendly. I put those together. I think that's going to be one of our fans' biggest questions. Did you feel safe? I will say this. I would not have known what to do had I not had my guide. I booked my guide through Tours by Locals.
Yeah.
His name was Malukan. Does that sound like a traditional name? Yeah, that was good. Good pronunciation.
Good,
Thanks.
good,
I'm getting a thumbs up. Appreciate it. He met me right at the airport. He had a driver as well. He took me everywhere, but it was never like my tour guide was never saying like, Brian, keep your wallet in your front pocket. We got to be careful. No, it wasn't like that at all. People were extremely friendly. I loved seeing like kids out playing and not, parents not hovering over them. It was just great. Yeah.
And you were only in the capital for those 2 days, right? You didn't venture out of that.
That's not true. Day 1, I was in the capital. Day 2, we went way out to the country.
Okay.
And I want to talk about that as well. But that was very unique. So, and I will say out in the country, it felt maybe even more safe. Would you agree with that, Iskinder? I mean, just like any city versus country.
Right. I think that's about fair.
Yeah. So, my fourth word was the outdoor market. This was in downtown Addis Ababa, one of the largest outdoor markets in the world. Do you know what I'm talking about? Just
Mercato. Is it in the world or just Africa?
No, probably Africa.
Yeah. I think the second probably.
It's just like,
is it the first?
People just lined up as far as the eye can see and everyone's selling something.
Right.
You could never
yeah.
like stop at each booth and look.
Right.
It just went on forever.
Right.
Wow.
I know I've heard, anecdotally that people come from surrounding cities and work, at that market and go back home. So the census gets very tricky in Addis Ababa. During the day, you see a lot of hustle and bustle.
Yeah.
People move out for the weekend or something.
I saw a guy selling mattresses, but he was like done for the day and he put like 13 mattresses on his head and he was walking back home with them.
Impressive.
I think I got a picture of it. We can share it.
Yeah.
But like, these are things, Iskinder, we just don't see here.
Yeah.
And you haven't seen here either, it.
Yeah, it's a lot of creativity, right? Because it's probably once you get used to that balancing sort of, that's a huge feat to pull off, right? To balance all that heavy stuff on your head.
It's a lot of ladies doing it as well. Ladies were carrying giant loads of, merchandise.
Right.
That was all somehow wrapped on their heads, keeping just excellent balance.
Right.
And I thought, man, if I could do that, maybe I wouldn't need to go to the chiropractor once every other month to get my neck adjusted. Or maybe I would have to. No, I don't think I would. I think my core would be so strong.
Probably, yeah.
So that was awesome. Highs and lows. I'm ready.
All right.
Sometimes things are good, sometimes they're bad too. It's highs, lows coming to you.
So I'm really curious to hear about your highs and your lows on this trip, if you even had any.
Oh, yeah. I have both. Oh, I'm ready. I'm prepared.
Oh, I had no doubt.
So my high was that I just really enjoyed having a private tour guide. This is a website called toursbylocals.com. You get to, like, every tour guide posts a blurb about what they do, maybe like a little video as well.
What? Well, go ahead and finish your thought.
Yeah, like a little, so you can kind of like almost interview your tour guide before you book them, right?
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. So I really liked what I saw about this guy because I really liked his idea of taking me to the city on day one to just show me all the, you got to see the famous churches, the lookout points, the high rises, the mercado, the market. But then on day two, he said, let's get out of the city. Let's go see how people in the countryside live. And that was awesome. And so I think one of my highs was on day number 2. I don't know if Malukin, my tour guide, like planned this. It sure looked like he did not. But like at 2 different points in our trip, he just had our driver just pull the car over. And he went out and ran over to this, twice this happened, to like a hut. I have a picture of it. It's like a circular hut, just kind of in the middle of nowhere, right off the side of the road. I guess it wouldn't be the middle of nowhere if it was off the side of the road, but it was off the side of the road. Knocked on the door, got approval, waved me in as well as the driver. We come walking in, and next thing you know, we are in a woman's hut with her kids, and she's making us coffee and giving us a tour. A living experience that I've never seen and I've only seen like in movies.
Wow.
And these are the things that made my trip unforgettable.
Yeah,
I
that sounds
remember,
amazing.
I remember sitting in this hut. Her kid brings out a soccer ball. He's all excited to show me. They get me coffee, and then she brings out some cheese and some noodles. It was like, wow, this is just wild. And they showed us like where they slept, and they were just super kind.
Talk about hospitality.
Yeah. They had a soccer poster up. I'm sure you would have known the team. I don't remember it, but I was thinking you would enjoy that, Will. You're our soccer fan.
Definitely.
So just being able to do that, those local experiences are always going to make your trip unforgettable.
So I have 2 questions for you. One is, what did it look like on like a day-to-day basis to have your private tour guide? Did they stick with you basically as soon as the day started, and they were with you until the day ended, all the way up to helping you with nightlife and all that kind of stuff? And 2, is it necessary to have a tour guide to go to Ethiopia? Can you get around in the capital without one?
Yeah, so generally when you're hiring tour guides, you're going to have a couple different options. You have like 2, 4, 6, or 8 hours. That's just, it's not always the case, but it's generally the case. 8 hours is usually going to be that full day tour. And in general, they're going to start, unless it's like you're going to go to a place that you need to wake up super early. Usually the start time you can choose, but I would say usually it's right after breakfast, somewhere around 8 or 9 a.m. Then usually they drop you off at a restaurant for dinner, and then you're kind of on your own for nightlife, and the tour guide gets to go home with their family, unless you're booking a night tour, of course. Sure. My tours were 8 hours each day. So the guide was with me. A guide ate lunch with me. In general, so I would offer to pay for the tour guide's lunch.
Yeah.
However, I think both days, because the tour guide brought me to that restaurant, the restaurant owner was willing to let the tour guide eat for free because he brought him business. So, and I've seen that all over the world. That's just, that's a common thing.
A pretty common thing.
So yeah, definitely stuck with me the whole time. What was the second question? Was it time frame?
Well, is it necessary to have a
tour guide? I am so pro tour guide.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we usually tend to be pro tour guide, but I guess more so in the sense of safety. Like, is it necessary to have a travel guide in order to be safe in the city?
I just don't know. I wouldn't have been able to drive. Okay. And I would have been so upset if I had just stayed, if I hadn't seen all that I got to see. When you're just on foot, you end up staying in like a 4-block radius. That's not true for everyone, but it's kind of true for me. But I would say safety safety aside, I was super glad to have a tour guide just to see more. But like I said, I felt very safe everywhere I went. That was not an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you want to touch on safety, Iskinder? Do you walk around the city center by yourself?
Yeah, I do. I think pretty much I agree with said. If you're not from Addis Ababa or whatever city you're touring, I think it makes sense to be around someone that knows, the ins and outs. Safety is one reason, of course, and the other reason is it might be hard to navigate the city if you're used to, if you're from a GPS-centered life. So in that sense, it's helpful. But I don't think there is a huge security risk to, at least visiting the downtowns.
So it's not like Somalia where you need a tour guide in order to survive.
No, not like that. Can people have guns?
I'm not quite sure on that. Maybe it could be licensed to have a gun, but it's not a common thing. Yeah, most people would not.
Got it.
It's not that common.
How much did it cost to have a private tour guide?
It's a couple $100 per day to have a tour guide for that 8-hour period.
Yeah, that's not
bad.
And
then I tipped as well.
And we'll get a specific number and we'll add it to our travel guide.
Great, thank you. One other high I had was that I got to go visit an underground church. Now, it wasn't the underground church that maybe you've seen on like National Geographic and the Travel Channel. That is like a 8 or 12-hour drive north of Addis Ababa, I believe. I think I have that later in the show.
When you say underground, do you mean under the earth? Or
yeah, under the earth. Yeah, not like hidden. It was very much like, welcome to our church. Yeah.
So there's no religious persecution in Ethiopia?
Good question. I don't think. There might be some controversy between the religions, but you could openly have a Catholic or Protestant church. Does that sound right?
Yes, that sounds right. Yep.
Okay, great.
Every now and then conflicts arise, but it's a country that sort of prides itself in having all these religions coexisting for, perhaps arguably millennia. So
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. So the UNESCO World Heritage Site is called Lalibela.
That's true.
All right. So that's like the rock-hewn church. Rock-hewn? Hone? H-E-W-N. How do you pronounce that word?
Hone?
It's a 12-hour drive from Addis Ababa. I think a lot of people will just take a short flight to go see it as opposed to drive, because you can do that as well. I did not get to see that. I did not see that. I saw the Adadi Mariam Rock Cut Church.
I never got to visit.
You've
that.
never seen that.
No.
You need to. It was so cool.
Yep.
You walk down steps into what looks like you're just going underground physically, and you're walking through these tunnels and these little compartmental rooms, all with cool rugs. You take your shoes off and walk around. I got videos down there. I got a lot of pictures. It was so much fun. Yeah.
Wow.
I highly recommend it.
This is a Christian church?
I want to say it was Orthodox.
Orthodox church.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I wonder why they built under the earth.
Yeah. I don't know.
You don't know? That's all right. Yeah,
I don't remember.
We don't need to know everything.
Yeah. Anything historical or... I love the stories about people. When my tour guides go off on dates and emperors, I usually tune out and let you listen, Will.
That's
all
fair.
right, let me share my lows. So this one wasn't really a low for me. I'm an extreme extrovert and I love attention.
It's kind of a unique situation.
I can see how this would be a low for many of my friends, some family members, and some people.
Yeah.
So I mentioned I'm a 6'3" Caucasian male. I stuck out like a sore thumb in Ethiopia. And so I was stared at, which I didn't mind at all. But the little children pointed at me and said, Farangi, Farangi. And the first time I just kind of smiled, and then it happened again and again. And then we went to that outdoor market. I think it happened, I would say, over 100 times. And like all the kids' friends were running up. Like it was like the word got out, like a Farangi, which means foreigner. Foreigner. They were just saying foreigner. That's all. They were like pointing at me, saying Farangi. They were all their friends, and they're following. So I finally get in the car, and we start driving away, and it was really cute. They're all running behind, but screaming at him and getting more friends to join. So, like, maybe have that in the back of your mind that could happen.
It could happen.
Yeah, that could happen to you as well. And then my second low was I arrive in the capital city. There's these gorgeous new skyscraper, really nice new train line, nice new like cell phone towers. And there is Chinese writing on everything. And I'm like,
so interesting.
This is really interesting. Like, I wasn't expecting to see so much like Chinese here, like Chinese writing all over Ethiopia. Yeah. These really nice things too. Like, they looked brand new. They were like shiny.
So why are they there?
Good question. China has come in, and this is not the first African country they've done this to.
Definitely is.
They've come in to help, I use my air quotes, with infrastructure. Hey, Ethiopia, we'll build you a new train line because you're well overdue for one here. We can see. We'll build you new cell phone towers. We see you could use them. We'll build you the new skyscraper. I want to say they're building like the tallest tower in Eastern Africa. It wasn't completed yet. But yeah, and it's kind of like, wow, China, this is very nice of you. Why are you doing this, right? Because they bring their own people over to build it. They don't have the local Ethiopians. They don't have locals help them. They hire Chinese people to fly over, help with this infrastructure, which from the outside eye, it seems great. Like, oh, looks like it's needed. There's a need here. Mm-hmm. They could definitely use a new train line. Because you could see the old one versus the new one, right? The new one looks great. You can see the new skyscraper next to the one that looks like it might fall over, right? Like this seems great. But what I'm learning, maybe you should jump in here, Iskinder. Yep. Why isn't this helpful for the Ethiopian community, the country?
Yeah, I don't know. You guys must have an economist on sometime. But yeah, I think it all boils down to the kinds of loans that the Chinese Exim Bank is very generous with.
Okay.
I think it has got to do with that because it's very hard for US or any other Western country to compete with China. They have the numbers and they have all the different rungs for quality and that sort of thing. So I think they got there pretty heavy and first, I think.
Okay.
And do you think that maybe, and this is all speculation.
Yeah, this is speculation on my part as well.
That's fine. That's majority of our podcast. Do you think that they've said something along the lines of like, hey, we'll give you all this infrastructure help, but there's something else? Is there a part in the contract that would maybe say like, you can only buy this from us, or
we get exclusive rights to a mineral or some sort of export that you guys have?
Or are the train lines to help like ship Chinese merchandise between countries, or you know what I'm saying, like their own?
Well, I remember when you came back, you were telling me about how they're doing all this infrastructure building and it's all well and good, but they're not hiring Ethiopians. They're hiring Chinese. They're bringing in Chinese workers, and it's not necessarily helping the Ethiopians. It's not creating any sort of work, and it's not generating any revenue for your normal Ethiopian. It's just the Chinese.
Right. Maybe there's less like import tax as well if they've built all the infrastructure. It's one thing just to like export your product, like, hey, can your country sell our widget, But to say like, oh no, we own the cell phone towers, we own the transportation, we own the sewage system. Like this is pretty big. Yeah, it's frightening.
Yeah.
So that was a low.
Yeah, regardless, it's a unique situation when it comes to travel in general.
Yeah.
But that kind of leads us into tips for the travel agents, doesn't it?
I love it.
Tips from the travel agents.
My first tip is spend at least one full day in Addis Ababa, the city center. I stayed at the Capitol Hotel. It was $90 for the night. That included tax and breakfast.
That's really nice.
And it was a city view room. It was a very nice hotel. It was one of their, I want to say it was one of their, maybe their only 5-star hotel in Addis Ababa at the time. Mm-hmm. I know a lot
there should be a lot of other 5-star hotels.
Yeah, with that
Okay,
Chinese
nice.
expansion.
I know that for Western clients who want something maybe a little like a brand they recognize, the Sheraton in Addis Ababa
Yes.
is pretty popular as well.
Yes, there's the Intercontinental.
Oh,
as
very
well.
nice.
I think there are a bunch of others. Well, I'm blinking on their
Great.
names, but I think
Great.
all the big brands might come to.
I love it. But you need to see the museums while you're in Addis Ababa.
Is there one that comes to mind?
There is. Before I went, I texted Iskinder. I said, "Hey, Iskinder, what should I do?" And he said, "Make sure you go see Lucy." And I'm like, "What's Lucy?" Can you explain who Lucy is?
Yeah, so it's like an ancient hominin. I think Australopithecus afarensis is the scientific name. It's like a 3.2 million year old human ancestor that was found in Ethiopia. There are a bunch of others as well, dated around the same time. So East Africa in general is pretty heavy on human origins, archaeology, and that sort of thing. It's
It's like you get to see the bones of Lucy, and then Lucy's like behind a glass, like it's a museum. So I want to say she's like 2 feet tall.
yeah, she's pretty short by modern.
You can see all the ribs and everything.
Right.
But then they like also put like hair on her to show you what she looked like, and that's pretty creepy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a lot of
we went
artwork to sort of work out, what Lucy must have looked like.
Because my tour guide and I went at the end of the day, and they were closed, but said something, and they were willing to let us in. Probably that was my second bribe of the trip. Because last summer we went down in the basement, and it was just us, and like. The lights were dim, and it was creepy seeing this Lucy.
Right.
Yeah. So definitely go do that.
So is it sort of what's the kind of gosh, I'm blanking here. Humanitarian, not humanitarian.
No, it's in the National Museum of Ethiopia, so it shows a lot of their relics and cool
Natural History Museum is what I was trying to
think
of.
Very close to that. There is a Natural History Museum. As part of Addis Ababa University, but this one is like a standalone museum in Ameskilo. I think it's a little ways from the university, but it's in the same museum university area.
Very cool. And was it free then? If it was a part of the university, and did you have to pay for it?
I think you might pay some nominal.
It was so nominal.
Yeah.
Okay,
very nominal fee.
$1 or $2.
Yeah,
it wasn't bad. I'm thinking U.S. standards, by the way. My next tip is make sure you do at least one full day outside of the city, because it's so different. I mean, even just getting out to the country, the sky looks different because the air quality isn't as polluted as the city, right?
That's true.
You see animals, you see the way people are living, you see the rolling hills. I mean, like rolling green pastures. I wouldn't have thought of this with Ethiopia. I don't know what I was thinking, maybe like desert or something. But to see rolling green pastures with cows, and it was just beautiful and great pictures. I wish I had my drone at that point. It would have been fun.
There's so many cool nature related things to do in Ethiopia. You have the Great Rift Valley that extends into Ethiopia along with other African countries. And what makes that so unique is there are 3 tectonic plates that meet and make up this valley. And at one end of the valley, and this is another tip that you got to check out on your trip, and that is to see the Danakil Desert. And what's so cool about this is that it's one of those locations on Earth where you go and you don't feel like you're on Earth anymore. It's one of the hottest places on Earth, and for that reason, it can be very dangerous to go to just because of the temperatures and all the gases that it's emitting. But if you look up pictures of Danakil Desert, you'll look at it and be like, this is not Earth, it's like Venus or something. But it is a place that you can go to, you can check it out, and it's a part of the Great Rift Valley. And one of the things that you have to keep in mind with this little area is that it's outside of the capital, but you will need a tour guide in order to go here because it's kind of on the border of Eritrea, another country that borders Ethiopia. And there's some history there between Ethiopia and Eritrea. And there were some border clashes. There were some situations in the past decade, of tourists being kidnapped, but that's not necessarily to say that it's a dangerous thing to do. As long as you stick with the tour guide and you don't deviate from that idea, you go with the tour guide, you go on a 2-3 day adventure and you're going out into this desert. There's salt flats. There's just a unique experience. I highly recommend checking it out. Look it up. We'll look up some tour guides that we recommend and we'll have some prices for you too.
It's funny, when I was talking with my tour guide in Ethiopia, I said, I've been here 2 days. I've seen a lot. I loved it. Like, what do you recommend for someone coming to Ethiopia? He said, you can just give me 10 days with them. I was like, 10? He's like, yeah, give me 10 days. I want to take them up north. I want them to see animals and monkeys. And I want to take them to the desert. Mm-hmm. I want to take them to that famous church that I talked about earlier, the UNESCO one. I want to take them down south to go see other types of, it seems like the diversity in nature he was really excited about and really eager to show me that. But, with 2 days, I had a great experience. You never know what you didn't see, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Until you Google it later.
I mean, 10 days is a good amount of days to go on a trip anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
Actually, it was encouraging talking to Iskinder about the food, because my first thought was, okay, 10 days, can I do injera for 10 days? But hearing that, like, you as a local, you don't like to eat injera every day, that gives me faith that I could do 10 days in Ethiopia and there would be other stuff to eat. Just kind of rapid fire here, other tips. If possible, try to fly business class on Ethiopian Airlines and get on the 787 Dreamliner. Use United mileage points to book through United.com, book those Ethiopian Airways tickets because it's part of Star Alliance. I stay at the Capital Hotel and Spa. I had a great experience. Breakfast included and it was somewhere from $90 to $99 for the night with tax. Definitely recommend going to see dinner and a show if possible. It would be cool if we got a name of that. If we could get like a name of that restaurant, maybe we can link to it in the show notes or something. But I remember I was able to find it. Get a local guide for sure. I do recommend my buddy Malukin from Tours by Local. Get your visa in advance. It's about $50, but also, based on my story at the beginning, travel with $50 cash just in case something
you need
happens.
to bribe someone.
Yeah, it's tough because can we call it a bribe, or was it just I screwed up the visa process?
Let's call it a facilitation fee.
Most tour guides and locals I met used WhatsApp. So have WhatsApp downloaded and know how to use it. That way you're not like confused.
That's a pretty handy tip. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. And then my last tip was make sure to somehow do a traditional coffee experience.
Man, I want to book a trip right now just to do the traditional coffee experience.
Good.
Yeah, if I could add just one more thing. Yeah.
Oh, please
So,
do.
like, the music is so amazing. So if you are, an aficionado of, like jazz or that sort of very impromptu, improvisational sort of music, you have a lot of that in Ethiopia, but with a very traditional Ethiopian touch to it. So if anyone just wants to go to Ethiopia, places like Bahir Dar, where it's really the heart of, improvisational Ethiopian music, it's more like, so I've been to New Orleans before, and it's very similar, the sense that you get, all the jazz greats, originate from New Orleans, right? So in the same sense in Bahir Dar, there's these open bars and pubs, called Azmari Bets, and then you just walk in. It's a lot of PG-13 stuff, but that's where the tantalizing sort of thing aspect of it comes from. But it's just a lot of good music, good poetry, and it's just awesome. So that's something to check out. There are a bunch of similar places in Addis as well, because it's such a big city. But if you go to Bahir Dar, it's one thing you don't want to miss.
I'm glad you're bringing up the arts, because going to see shows and local culture and flair, it's so different. And I think it's important for us to see other cultures, especially when you get to go there personally and see it. It's very different than going to like your cities. Oh, we're having an international day and we're going to have dances from 30 different countries. Like, this is better. You're going to the homeland to see it, and it feels more authentic somehow.
I would completely agree with that.
Great. Any other tips you have? That was good. I think we're ready for standby items.
It's safety and other info with standby items. Here we go.
There were these like blue taxis everywhere. It was one of those things where we were just used to seeing yellow taxis here.
Yeah.
Actually, we're used to Uber now, or like the little Lyft, bright bright pink thing. That's what I'm used to now. But like, I heard that these taxis were imported. It was either from Russia or like somewhere in one of those USSR countries. But you can't miss them because they're really boxy. They're blue. They have looks like a woman's picture on the driver's door, and then like a white top.
Oh wow!
And they're just kind of everywhere. And they say they have so many. They were all built in like the 1970s, and so they have so many that they have junkyards full of the scrap. So the moment like your taxi something like falls off or breaks, like no problem, we have like just thousands of extra of that part we could easily so I guess they just kind of last forever. So make sure you check out the blue taxis. I have a picture of the hut that I got to go in. That was I feel bad calling it a hut. What do you call this kind of house? Like just a house?
Right, they call it gojo bait in Amharic. But,
sure, a gojo bait.
Yeah, but a hut. Like it's really a dignified sort of residence. It's not really like, a hut, for people that are not familiar with the actual terminology. They might think, it's like, just a makeshift kind of thing, but it's not. It's really
it's definitely not.
Deliberately, meticulously prepared sort of domicile.
So there were ATMs all over downtown Addis. I didn't see many ATMs out countryside. Okay. I will say load up on cash, though. Just get plenty of it. Because there will be people that you want to tip. There will also be like purchases and souvenirs you want to make. Lots of like any museum, just like here, there was a gift shop, but the gifts were more unique because they were like handcrafted, and it didn't look like it was just, I don't know, something like wasn't like a Christmas tree ornament. Like it was something for me that was really cool. And I know I got so many gifts for my nieces and nephews and family back home, whether it be like bracelets or a little picture or just like a little coffee set or something. So don't be afraid to pull out cash at an ATM in downtown Addis.
Well, I had a question for you. Were you able to drink tap water, or did you have to stick with bottled water, or did you have any issues coming from America?
I did bottled water. That's another nice thing about having a guide. The moment I touched down at the airport, I got in the car. He had 2 large water bottles, plastic water bottles, waiting for me. And then every day, well, it was only 2 days, but 2 fresh water bottles each day.
Wow.
My hotel in the room, I think there were 2 or 3 water bottles. And then going out to eat, we had water. They gave us water bottles as well as, bottles of beer. What's the local beer?
There are a bunch.
St. George.
St. George is pretty famous.
Oh.
Yeah,
I liked it because it just reminded me of like a Yingling or like a lager.
Yeah. That's cool.
Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, my favorite is probably Walia. So it's like a name of an endemic animal species. So.
Oh, cool.
But the taste is also really good.
Yeah,
I think I have some in my fridge that I got from Columbus at some point. Yeah, apparently they import Ethiopian beer in Columbus.
When you and I went up to Cleveland, by the Cleveland Browns Stadium, there's that Ethiopian restaurant, Empress Tattoo, and I remember you said to me, "Hey, do you want to get some? Was it honey wine?"
Oh yeah, that's true. There's a bunch of traditional alcohol,
but it wasn't like wine, like
well.
Not like wine I'm used to, not like Italian or French wine. It was kind of sweeter,
kind of like a mead.
Yes, that's exactly what I would say. It almost tasted like a treat.
Yeah, probably. I think is that the same thing that you got there, or is it very different? Did you try?
Are you saying that what we had in Cleveland was different than what we?
Yeah, because over here, you try to make it a little
sweeter,
palatable to an American test, but
no, dumb it down for us.
I didn't have wine over there.
You did. Yeah, it's quite different. I'm not sure if they have this variety there, but it's very different. It's like midway between traditional and
we were stuck in traffic on that first day, and the tour guide just rolled down his window and called over to a girl who looked like she was 10 or 11. She was on the sidewalk and she was cooking something, and they were like little it was like a dough. It looked like an empanada. When you bit into it, it had like lentils inside.
Oh, okay.
Does this ring a bell?
It
what
does,
this could have been?
Yeah, like something like a sambosa or something like that.
Yeah, it was just like a sambosa.
Right. I love it. I mean, I would generally be very careful about street food, not just in Ethiopia, but everywhere.
Yeah, right.
But if you want to test it, I think you can really have a very decent experience of that in the in a restaurant or something.
Yeah.
Usually they present that to you as an appetizer. Even at Daitu, I think that you can order sambosa.
Yeah,
so pretty traditional.
So, like, I didn't get any vaccinations. What a time to talk about vaccinations.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get any vaccinations for this trip.
Okay.
I'm up to date on my routine vaccinations. MMRP.
Sure.
Shoot, we need Kristen here to tell us.
Yeah, we need
your wife.
Yeah.
I'm up to date on my routine vaccinations. I did not. I was not required to get yellow fever or anything like that.
Okay.
I think it was on the we recommend it list, but it was not a requirement.
Nice.
Really just the tourist visa as well as your passport is required. And that was $50. I got it in advance. It was a very easy process. I'm trying to think. Iskinder, I wanted to ask you about if you're willing to share anything about Ethiopia's relationships with their border countries.
Yeah.
Is that something that...
more specifically like Eritrea?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not really like 100% confident to comment on that, but like from a layman's perspective, my sense is that, it's a relatively stable and peaceful country in the region, especially when you consider the fact that Ethiopia is heavily involved in, peacekeeping missions in, neighboring countries, especially South Sudan and that sort of thing. Recently, there's been some political instability with, with Sudan, like a land grab sort of thing as put by the Ethiopian government. But I think that seems to be under control. But in general, it's very peaceful. The situation with Eritrea, as far as I know, after 2 decades almost of animosity, I think the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, the current one, sort of found a way to strike a deal with Eritrea. Now it's pretty peaceful and people can just, go in and out.
That's good.
By land. So that's pretty a pretty good relationship. I think with Djibouti, with Kenya, it's pretty good. And one thing to note is with Kenya, there's an open border policy, much like the US and Canada. So it's pretty good if you want to really go to the southern part of Ethiopia, say like to Moyale, Mega, Yabelo. These are places I visited. It's within 100, 200 kilometers of the southern border. And you can just easily cross over to Kenya. Some people have even gone as far as Nairobi, the capital city of Kenya. So it's pretty convenient to match activities between Ethiopia and Kenya. But in general, it's a pretty stable country given the instability of the entire region.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more economic powerhouses of Africa.
That's also correct.
So my last question for you and I, Iskinder, and I'll answer it first to give you time to think about it, is what's one takeaway you would like people to know about your country? And I'll answer that from a perspective of what's one thing I would want to tell people if they were going to visit Ethiopia. And I'm specifically talking about maybe fellow people from here in the US or other Western countries. So my biggest takeaway is, and a lot of this is just due to the very convenient price tag, but go to Ethiopia and get a private guide. I am a fan of doing group tours. There's nothing wrong with the group tours. I've actually been on some myself. I did I did a traditional bus tour around Ireland. I did one around the Canadian Rockies and the
we got an episode on
Costa
Israel
Rica. Yeah, we did a Israel group bus tour. So I'm not against them. I'm not. But I will say one thing about group tours is it can be a temptation just to chat with the people in your group, which is a good thing. I think you should meet friends on your tour. But the beauty of Ethiopia, in my mind, was getting to chat with and meet local Ethiopians who were so friendly, overly eager to, give you food and coffee and take you around and tell you about their home, their culture, and things like that. I wouldn't want you to miss that by spending your whole time with people who spoke your same language on a tour bus. So the price is right. Get a private tour guide. Don't be freaked out. You will do just fine. It's safe. Get a private guide. We're super happy.
So the main takeaway is don't miss out on the hospitality of Ethiopians and the kindness that they have to offer.
Could not have said it better.
Right. I think you guys have done a pretty good job of covering everything as far as tips go.
Oh, wow. Well, great.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to need tips on visiting the U.S., though, from you.
Yeah.
You should be the one to provide that to us.
Oh, right. We should do another episode on that one. Maybe we should record that in Ethiopia.
Well, it's so funny. Like,
in Amharic, I'll just change the table.
You being my friend who's just like living here in America, I'm always thinking like, oh, do I need to like reach out to like, does he know what to do here? Like, is he okay? Is he meeting people? And then I hear you're in like the local Akron jazz club playing saxophone. I'm like, oh yeah, I think he's he's more social than I am though.
Right. Which is saying a lot.
Yeah.
Well, that is impossible, by the way, to be more social than me. No, I'm kidding. But anyways, so I want to say thank you. But anything that you would like to share, a takeaway about Ethiopia?
I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me on. It's so great. I learned a lot just from, listening to you guys talk about, Ethiopia and how, it's just one of the things that I was looking forward to coming in here was to see your American perspective of what Ethiopian tourism, Ethiopian visit is like. So it's as much educational to me as it might be for you as well. So
that's great.
Yep.
Well, it was a great honor to have you on the podcast. That's for sure.
Thank you.
I think for our first international episode, we went big, and let's see those Ethiopian bookings start rolling in.
Yeah, and I think that wraps up our show.
We're the travel agents. That's the end of our show.